State. So I made a point of focusing on issues I know so many people, especially women, have to deal with every single day. And for parents, especially women in Washington State, the issue is childcare. And you know, when I was actually first running for the US Senate, I got asked specifically, what are you going to do about your kids? I will assure you, no man running for the Senate gets asked that question. But it doesn't matter if you're running for the Senate or you're a clerk at a grocery store. For too long, the challenge of a childcare has been seen as what are you going to do about it, rather than what are we going to do about it. I hear from moms across our state who've had to quit their jobs because they can't find or afford childcare. And for women of color, this challenge can be even more difficult. And that not only makes it incredibly hard for women to provide for their families or grow their careers, it also hurts our economy. We want women in the job market. We want women in the Senate. We want women to be able to take whatever path they choose, because our country and our economy benefits from that. So now is the time that we have to take action to address the childcare crisis that has long existed here in Washington State and across the entire country, which has only been made worse by this pandemic. The historic steps that we were able to take for childcare in the American Rescue Plan have paved the way now for rebuilding an economy that works for women and working families. But our work is just beginning. We need to make sure quality childcare is available and affordable to every family. And that starts by passing Childcare for Working Families Act. Childcare is a critical part of our infrastructure and absolutely must be included in the American Families Plan. You need the basics for you to be able to do your job. And the basics include bridges and roads, and they absolutely include childcare. Ask any mom. A road won't do you any good if you can't find safe childcare for your family. We have to recognize that an investment in childcare is essential, and we need to fight hard to make sure every working family has access to quality, affordable childcare. And childcare for working families is critical to making that a reality. This is our legislation that would ensure that every working family has access to high quality, affordable childcare, and that our early childhood educators are paid for what they deserve. That's not only the right thing to do for our working families, it is a smart investment in our children, in our future, and in our economy. And it's an investment we must make in our state. I know that Lois and Luke are going to speak about some of the challenges that providers in our state are facing as they struggle to keep their doors open. And Patti, who's with us today, is going to talk about some of the issues they face as a parent looking for childcare for their children. The challenges they deal with each day are challenges providers and parents all over Washington State are confronting. And they're going to continue to face this if we don't pass this bill. So I'm really glad that a brighter spotlight has been shined on these issues and that they're not just this afterthought as more voices join the conversation. And I'm going to keep pushing to get this bill across the line. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to hear from some great people today, and I'm going to turn it over to Luke first. We had a chance to talk last summer when he was struggling, and I'm delighted he's joining me again today to hear how he's doing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Murray, for your steadfast support of children, families, and the early care and education workforce. My name is Luke Jasmine, and I own and operate a few early learning centers here in Spokane and serve as the president of our statewide advocacy group, Washington Child Care Centers Association. Last summer, Senator Murray highlighted the need for additional funds for our childcare industry in a press conference similar to this one. And shortly after, the childcare industry received state grants funded by federal CARES dollars that kept us afloat. Without these funds, we would have not been able to keep our doors open. At Parkview Early Learning Center alone, we serve about 115 children and employ over 30 staff. But even with this lifeline, we are holding on by a rope, and that is why I'm thankful for this bill. This bill is being discussed. There are a number of positive aspects to the Child Care for Working Families Act that will meet the number of needs in our field. Having a steady stream of fiscal support gives providers the ability to increase compensation for our amazing educators in our field. And early educators never stopped providing safe and consistent spaces for our community children. Many of us have postponed our own mental and physical health needs in order to continue serving. We overcame our own fears, the unknowns brought on by this once in a generation pandemic, and we stood by our families. We always knew and wanted to have robust benefits, particularly health insurance, but this pandemic really highlighted the reasons why these type of benefits for the workforce are crucial and must be available to all. This bill provides funds going straight to our state. It provides more opportunities for our children to access resources they need to be successful in school and beyond. It makes Working Connections childcare funds available to more families. Some families currently make a little above the guidelines, but not enough to pay for private childcare. Expanding income thresholds for Working Connections childcare program gives them the opportunity to get reduced rates for childcare. This program can have a wide-reaching impact by expanding the ability for small business childcares to make our budgets whole again after the impact of COVID-19. Increasing direct investments in childcare programs makes the early learning experience better for the children we teach and the staff who support them. Thank you for allowing me to share. Now I'm going to turn it over to my good friend and colleague from the West Side, Lois Martin.
All right, thank you, Luke. And I hope you can hear me. I am in the center with my mask on. Good morning, my name is Lois Martin and I am the owner and director of Community Day Center for Children. For me, when the news of the pandemic reached our shores, I knew it was only a matter of time before it hit the West Coast. Since we are part of the global gateway for so many who travel to our country to visit or to set down roots in order to build the life they desire for their families. Following the science, I understood that the time would come when I would be faced with the difficult decision to choose between closing the doors of my center or to remain open to serve our families. When COVID-19 touched down in January and after the first death in late February, I closed our site for 3 weeks thinking, this will be temporary. We reopened on April 6th with 8 children and 12 staff, not even a quarter of our average daily attendance of 37. I didn't know how we were going to make it, but a year later, we are still standing thanks to CARES Act funding from local, state, and federal sources, along with other grant monies. But being able to simply limp along isn't enough. It isn't enough for the families of young children who need our services. It isn't enough for the single parents who had to make a choice between keeping their frontline jobs or staying home because the childcare home or center they relied on had to shutter its doors. It isn't enough for the many women who left their positions by force or choice, whose missing contributions to the economic and creative growth of our state and nation will be felt for years to come as the promotions and raises for them decrease and the gender wage gap increases. It isn't enough for 2 parents who elect for one to stay home with the children, and that income reduction means shoes may have to last a little longer and family vacations may be a thing of the past. But Senator Murray, your proposed legislation brings the possibility of hope to me and to other providers. You understand that in the words of my friend Monica Alexander, there are parts that are broken, but the whole car isn't disabled, it's just parts. And we have to fix those parts. And this bill, this act does just that. It levels the economic playing field for low to moderate wage earners who might be able to save a little or spend a tad bit more when their childcare expenses are capped at 7%. It provides a way to increase early care and education personnel wages to make them equivalent to the pay scale of the K-12 system. It rewards educational attainments using a scaffolding approach that opens doors to coursework that improves our interactions with children without leaving any provider behind. And most importantly to me, it calls for a diverse workforce because our country is only as strong as the intersection of our differing perspectives. I know Senator Murray, you and the staff will provide more details about the Child Care for Working Families Act, but to me, this bill is a win-win for families, early care educators, and the children we lead to succeed. I appreciate you having the foresight to invest in the future of our country, our children. And now I will turn it over to Patti. Thank you so much.
First, I want to express my deep appreciation to Luke and Lois for the work that you and your colleagues do to love and educate our children. Thank you so much. My name is Patti Liu. I live in South Seattle, and I'm the mother to two wonderful little boys who are nearing the ages of 5 and 2. It's an open secret among moms that before telling anyone else that you're pregnant, your first calls need to be getting on the sometimes years-long wait list for childcare programs because there are so few infant spaces available in our area. And it's even more challenging still for those who didn't know to start looking early, finish their family leave if they're lucky to have one, and then can't find a spot at all. And then you also have to be able to afford it. For many years, wherever you turned, people were always talking about the cost of higher education, but absolutely no one told you before you had kids that childcare costs more than college, 113% of in-state tuition to be precise. And we have to be precise to the penny because our family budgets depend on it. For my family, those pennies added up to $2,525 per month for both kids in full-time care, which is more than our mortgage and car payments combined. At the beginning of 2020, I had the opportunity to make a big career shift that I had been working towards. For 5 years, I'd been leading a nationwide textile and clothing recycling program. And while this job was incredible, it was very specialized. And I was strategic about wanting to expand my scope in my next professional steps while continuing to maintain a focus on the environment and sustainability. On January 2nd, 2020, I finally transitioned to an exciting new position in waste and materials management with a boutique environmental consulting firm in Seattle. Even though it was my dream job I'd been looking for, it was still only barely making enough to cover the cost of childcare. And unfortunately, when the pandemic hit and our childcare provider had to close, I was laid off because I could only work up to 60% of my normal hours due to my new caregiving responsibilities at home. But like many families during this time, when our childcare provider asked us to continue paying during their closure to help keep them afloat and to reserve our spot when they reopened, we knew this was something we had to do. We were concerned about the potential of our childcare and preschool closing permanently. And while we wanted to help keep them in business, we also needed the spots to be there for us when offices reopened and for when I got a new job. While many parents were asked to pay full tuition, I suppose we were lucky because we only had to pay a reduced rate during the closure. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't impact our family financially. Being down in income while still paying upwards of $1,000 per month for childcare that I was now providing at home was both frightening and disappointingly necessary. My kids are now back in part-time care that we are still paying for on one income because I cannot be both a full-time caregiver and look for work, do the necessary networking to find a good position, and be available for interviews all at the same time. But honestly, I, like many other women, have been left wondering whether I should just give up on the career I worked so hard for and stay home with my kids because the math of affording childcare just doesn't add up. And this makes me so sad because not only does it mean not using the degree I spent years working for, it also means not contributing creatively and intellectually to the society I want, for the way I want for myself. And it means not being able to contribute to society and the economy through my tax dollars. I want to pay taxes, and I want to help create a social safety net and improve the quality of life for people throughout this country. And I can't do these things without quality and affordable childcare. I adore my children and being a mom, and I also love my career, and I should be able to do both. This pandemic didn't cause these problems. It has only laid bare for everyone else to see what parents, what us moms have long known. The difficulty finding and affording quality childcare takes a huge toll on women. The current system, which requires each family build their own childcare solution from scratch, isn't working. And when childcare isn't working, neither can we. Our country cannot continue to rely on individuals, mostly women, to do the work that we should be doing together as a society. Thank you, Senator Murray, for bringing this conversation to the forefront and for fighting for working parents and the early learning professionals who are often working parents themselves. I'm going to hand this off to Amir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So now we have time for press Q&A. So for any reporters on the call, please at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the reactions option and just raise your hand to ask a question. and we'll call on folks in the order they ask. All right, we have one from Jennifer with the Seattle Times. So Jennifer, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, Senator. Thanks for the call today. Do you feel like your colleagues have got a better handle on how important this is this time around? And who is it that you have to convince in order to advance this legislation this year?
You know, Jennifer, that's such an important question. Childcare has been a silent problem for decades for working families. And speaking up meant that you put your own job at risk because your employer would go, oh, you have a problem, I'll promote somebody else. So just raising the voices have been difficult. Now here in Congress, same thing applies. Raising the voices, making it an issue everybody understands, it is growing. And what is especially helpful is we have more women senators who they themselves have had to deal with childcare that are echoing our voices. And the more we echo and the more we talk to people and the more we convince people that this is a problem, they recognize it in their own families as well. And then of course, this pandemic has ripped open the whole vision into childcare, as Patti talked about. So personally, what happened to her with her situation happened to literally hundreds of thousands of people. So they're now starting to talk to their legislative members. So childcare is finally becoming an actual real conversation in Congress, and we're trying to take advantage of that now and pass this and make sure that we come out of this pandemic better, but we don't go back to just normal. We go back to a place where childcare is a critical, essential piece of our infrastructure. You know, and we're just making those arguments every day and working to get as much support as we can.
Thank you. And if we have any other questions, please go ahead and use the raise your hand function. Not seeing any other hands raised. If you are having trouble